want to talk about reparations? We pay reparations. What do you mean you want reparations? Our taxpayer dollars, which are mostly white people paying that, goes to, what is it? Affordable housing, government programs, EBT, scholarships, DEI, you guys getting jobs. Holy shit. Let's take all that, factor in the theft, factor in the crime, factor it in the murders, and then we'll talk about reparations.
The true America. The stipulation has always been that black people are lazy, that black people are on welfare. Well, guess what? A lot of poor white people in the red states are now crying that they're not getting the EBT money from the EBT cards. Why? Because they are on welfare. They have 7 and 8 kids. Now the truth is coming out since Trump has slashed funding for the EBT and the SNAP programs. You see how many white people now are on welfare. So all this mythical stuff about black people being on welfare, oh, it's the blacks, it's the blacks, it's the blacks. Now you're seeing the real America, that it's not only black people on welfare, that there are a lot of white people on welfare also. There are a lot of white people, a lot of poor people living in those red states, and those red states that voted for Trump are now getting hit hard.
Welfare was created for white people.
5% of welfare and food stamp moochers are white, live in southern red states, and vote for Republicans.
There are no organizations dedicated to the welfare of rural whites.
How many people have noticed that just about every Democratic policy that white conservatives despise,
they won't be able to afford rent. I'm not a rich person. I don't have a lot of stuff. I have basic household necessities, a couch, a bed, washer and dryer. That's about it. A car. I don't have a lot of lavish things. I don't go on vacations, and I don't spend a lot. Rent's increased from $1,300 to $1,800. The food prices are too high. I've cut back on eating because I literally cannot afford food. I've cut back on my favorite snacks, cat food, treats. I'm exhausted all the time for being overworked and underpaid. You don't catch a break when you grow up poor. I don't need much to be happy. I just want to be able to live comfortable. They just really need to catch a break right now. I'm trying so hard, and I feel like I'm not doing enough. I don't have family. I don't have anything to fall back on.
Welfare is for citizens, and citizens have always been white. Between 1775 and 1855, the United States government issued over 500,000 land bounty grants. These grants went to people who served in the military, but here's the thing, they were transferable, so you could sell them, and that's what soldiers did. White soldiers, because even though there were black soldiers serving in every war since the Revolutionary War, only white soldiers were eligible for land bounty grant. Welfare is for y'all. It's always been for y'all.
You can't take people's, historical context away from them. And everybody wants this to. White people are always like, come on, it wasn't us. They want black people to forget everything. Every year, white people add 100 years to how long ago slavery was. I've heard educated white people say slavery was 400 years ago. No, it very wasn't. It was 140 years ago. That's 2 70-year-old ladies living and dying back to back. That's how recently you could buy a guy. That's it. And it's not like slavery ended and then everything has been amazing. It just...
Oh, glad that's over.
Oh, yeah, it just ended like a clean... where you don't have to wipe, just boom, and then it's just been parades and presents ever since. You gotta remember that if you meet a black person, they have gray hair, they remember a time they weren't allowed to use a certain toilet. So give them a little, time to be cranky.
As one little point, because, white folks, we love to do this, right? White folks, particularly around race, we like to say things like, why can't black people just get over it? Slavery was a long time ago, all right? Why can't they just move on? Well, this is sort of precious coming from people who set off fireworks every July 4th, because that's some old too, right? Independence Day, that didn't happen last week, right? We didn't break away from the British last Thursday. That's some old but we're still celebrating that. So when it's stuff that makes us feel good, we love it. When it's stuff that makes us feel better than others, superior, like we're the greatest people in the greatest country ever struck off from the forehead of God Almighty, oh, we'll remember that forever. We just don't like the stuff that brings us up a little short, makes us look a little less than superior, maybe not quite as good as we'd like to believe.
So I posted about white folks on food stamps. And one thing I kept seeing was that welfare was created for white people. I knew that it was created during the New Deal, so I did some more research because I didn't really know the whole story, and I thank you guys for responding and helping me learn stuff. So during the Great Depression is when we saw the beginning of things like Social Security, unemployment insurance. But here's the kicker. When Franklin Roosevelt built those programs, he had to make deals with Southern Democrats in Congress, the same folks who were big fans of Jim Crow, to get the support of these racist white Southern politicians. The programs were designed to exclude farm workers, domestic workers, jobs held overwhelmingly by Black, Latino, and Indigenous people. So right from the start, Black and brown families were pushed out of benefits so that white people could get them. Then we move forward to the 1960s, and there's this war on poverty. It finally opened up welfare programs more broadly, and that's when food stamps became permanent. Well, permanent, we don't know what Trump's going to do to them, but they lasted a long time. And guess what? The minute more Black and brown families started accessing this help, the politics shifted. Welfare got a new image and a new target. By the 1980s and 90s, with Ronald Reagan and his gang, they pushed the welfare queen myth. That's a racist dog whistle meant to turn public opinion against safety nets by blaming Black women for poverty that white policies created. That's the truth, you guys. So yes, welfare was built for white people, and when others finally got in the door, they tried to burn the house down. If you want to blame the right people, you got to get curious.
America's not failing because of Trump. It's failing because you don't want to lose your couch. You know what I think the Trump and the Republican Party are actually betting on? Not the courts, not even elections, not even the lies. I think that they're betting on you. I think that they're betting that no matter whatever happens, when push comes to shove, you're going to do what's necessary to hold on to your little bit of crumbs no matter what. Because let's be honest, people care more about their position in the hierarchy than the fact that the hierarchy even exists. You'll fight your neighbor over a parking spot, but you won't fight your government when it steals from you in broad daylight. You're mad, so you say, but you're not really mad enough to do anything. And see, they know that. They know that most people would rather hang on to the little bit of scraps that they have than risk those scraps to push back against something. That house you still paying the bank for, that car note, those clothes, that jewelry, all of that stuff keeps you in check more than any law ever could. And here's the irony. The same system that you claim is broken, you're still loyal to it. You'll complain about it, sure, but deep down, you'll obey it because you don't want to drop from the middle of the ladder to the bottom. So you'll protect it, even if that means protecting the very people that are destroying you. And that's exactly why this keeps happening. That's why they keep winning. Because the truth is this, America really isn't being destroyed from the top. It's quietly being surrendered from the bottom. So maybe the question isn't, can we come back from it, right? I think the real question is, do we even want to?
Why do we have so much poverty in America? I just heard one of the best responses to this question, so you have to watch the video.
Why is there so much poverty in America?
Because many of us profit from it. We exploit the poor in the labor markets, housing markets, and financial markets. Many of us benefit from that exploitation. We design a welfare state that gives the most to families that need it the least. And we subsidize affluence much more seriously than we alleviate poverty. And we build and continue to maintain segregated communities. We build walls around our affluence, and we hoard opportunities behind those walls. And that creates not only pockets of affluence, but pockets of concentrated poverty. So we have to tear down the walls. We found that landlords who are operating in very poor neighborhoods, these are neighborhoods with poverty rates in excess of 27%, don't just make more than landlords in affluent neighborhoods, but make double. They make double. And the reason is their housing expenses are much lower, but rents are not that much lower in poor neighborhoods. And I think that was a real revelation to us. And it opens up both policy possibilities, but also just this idea of, poor folks aren't living in high poverty neighborhoods because that's the only place they can afford. It's not super affordable to live there, actually.
Right.
They're often living in these places because they're the only ones that allow them to live there. Is it better to be a landlord in Soho than the South Bronx? Yes, it is. But in most other cities, think like Buffalo, not Boston, it's actually better to be a landlord profit-wise in poor neighborhoods rather than affluent ones.
Statistically speaking, white people are the biggest beneficiary of welfare programs. And I just want to drop some knowledge on you. Not on you specifically, but on the original comment, the person that posted it. All right, so a little bit about me is that prior to becoming an attorney, my trade actually is economics. I'm an economist by trade and education-wise. In fact, I was going to work on Wall Street prior to becoming an attorney, but I wound up becoming an attorney. Now that that's out the way, let's get to the raw statistics. All right, so white people are the biggest beneficiaries of welfare. White people make up about just about a little bit over 40% of welfare, being recipients of welfare. Another 25.7% is made up by African Americans.
Government assistance was made for white people. The fact that the programs are made in like 1935, like in the 1930s, says it all right there, given the fact that black people were not even considered people under the law at that time. But I've really been doing some more research and reading, and I read an article and they were talking about how like up until like the 60s or 70s, black people really could not qualify for government assistance. And that is absolutely disheartening, being that now it hasn't even been 100 years later that black people are now the face of all racial stereotypes regarding government assistance in Section 8. Meanwhile, these same programs were never even made for us. Meanwhile, black people had to jump through hoops to get qualified. Meanwhile, people talk about black fathers not being in the home, and these same government institutions were not wanting the men to be there.
I've been getting a lot of comments asking why I'm speaking for black people instead of letting them speak for themselves. And that right there is the problem, because black people are speaking. Black people have been speaking. You just haven't been listening to them. And it's an incredibly sad reality. But white people tend to listen more readily to other white people than they listen to black people. It's gross, it's ignorant, and yes, it's rooted in racism, whether people admit it or not. Because black women have been talking about this Brighton case from the very beginning. Their discomfort, their distrust, their fear, their historical context behind why these stories feel so deeply unsettling to them, and instead of actually hearing them, people dismiss them as crazy, dramatic, conspiracy theorists. But then a white woman says maybe we should listen to black women, and suddenly everybody can hear the conversation loud enough to get angry about it. And that alone proves the point, because the issue was never that black women were silent. The issue was that too many of you only start paying attention once the message is coming from somebody white. And honestly, it's pathetic, and that should embarrass a lot of you.
You guys heard, elected Republicans are fighting with the Trump administration on the background because some of the Trump executive orders are hurting Republicans. And to be quite frankly, they realize some of the Trump executive orders are hurting white folks. You know this saying that you tell yourself a lie long enough and you start believing in it? And that's basically what's going on with the Republican Party now. For decades now, the Republican Party has been telling folks that the United States government, it's solely there for the betterment of black folks and other minorities. That and since Brown v. Board of Education's 1954 eradicate segregation but equal, the Civil Rights of 1964, redlining. So ever since those things, the Republican Party has been telling their voters that, listen, the government is there for the betterment of black folks and minorities, so we need less government. right? Ronald Reagan was really good with that. So less government. The government is not the solutions. Government is the problem. That's what you heard. But the fact of the matter is, most social programs, the overwhelming of the social government programs are used by white folks. And which makes sense because the U.S. population is about 65-68% white. Therefore, a larger group of whites are using those social programs. But because they've been telling themselves this lie for so long, they believe into it and they put executive orders in place to reduce the size of the U.S. government. Lo and behold, who are getting hurt are those voters. Right now, there's the fight. There's an infighting in the Republican Party to say, hey, we don't want you to hurt those folks. Right? And the crazy thing is, the U.S. government has always been there, has always been in place for the betterment of white America. Right? Redlining. Technically, a red line to where the FHA would HUD, where HUD would finance loan, where HUD wouldn't finance loan, the black neighborhood, any loans, and that HUD said they wouldn't, they would not finance, and the white neighborhood they would finance it. That's what redlining is, right? The GI Bill. 98% of folks who participated in the GI Bill were white folks. Only 2% of black and minority actually took participate in the GI Bill, because the GI Bill, the money was disseminated to local government, and local government with their racist Jim Crow laws in place, no black veterans could actually participate. So again, the Republican Party has been telling themselves this lie for 4 or 5 decades now, and they believe it. And it's just now they realize, oh shoot, these people are not the larger benefactor of government programs.
Every democratic policy that white conservatives despise, they benefit most from. For example, white conservatives claim they despise federal government overreach. Well, 8 of the top 10 states that take federal tax dollars are conservative states. They'll tell you welfare is socialism and we need to end welfare. Well, white people have benefited more from welfare than any other demographic, while excluding black Americans. They'll tell you gun laws don't work because they don't keep us safe. Well, 16 of the top 17 states in gun death rates are conservative states who have almost no firearm legislation. They'll tell you government does not help when making healthcare affordable. Well, while 13 of the top 14 states in death rates by diabetes are conservative states, 193 Republicans voted against lowering the cost of insulin. They'll tell you they despise affirmative action. Well, affirmative action has benefited white women more than any other demographic. Studies show white conservatives don't hate these benefits, they just don't want black people to have access to them. Because when you've had privilege your whole life, equality feels like oppression.
I don't understand how truly poor the American South is. I moved from Tennessee to California about 4 years ago, and I'm still paying for it now. We just don't have the money to move, and so I don't really meet a lot of people from Tennessee out here. The closest I find are really people from Ohio, and so now I'm a Browns fan. But I bring that up because that's an important component in understanding the political divide. It has taken a lot for me to understand that social programs are there for me to use them, because for most of my life, there was not enough to go around. I remember the first time I went to a food bank and they gave me an onion, I actually cried. And not like onion cried, but cried, because it wasn't required food. It was flavor, and that was a luxury I couldn't really ever afford. And then I learned that they had like taco seasoning, and oh my God, it was amazing. But when you're used to getting by on so little, and the only security you really feel you have is the ability to make a dollar stretch, it is scary to ask for help, and you wonder who you're taking it away from. So when people take aid when they're destitute as opposed to like nearly, I think people can jump into judgment because they probably need the aid just as much as the person who received it, and they're scared it won't be there when they're long past needing it. And guys,
do y'all know that the average American doesn't have any money left over, if but maybe $200 or $300 left after they get paid every 2 weeks or every month? Did y'all know that? I'm sorry, but that I literally feel like drive me to voluntary homelessness. I would volunteer to be homeless. There's no way they'd have me out here working for anybody and I can't live life after I pay bills. Y'all can have these bills back. Take the car, take the crib. You can have it. Listen, I'm going to be homeless on the streets before I dare. Because, see, the way I'm set up, my Father which art in heaven would never have that be my portion. That's not my portion. There's no way that paying bills and not having any money left over to really exist, that's not my portion. That's not my portion. And I feel like if that doesn't motivate you and inspire you to get out here and go make some money, make more money. See, the problem with us nowadays is not that we don't know how to make money. It's just that we need to make more money. Find ways to make more money. Stop making excuses. You need to be trying to be the president of the United States before you stop trying to find a new job. Listen, if you got to switch jobs every single 2 weeks, then that's what you got to do. May the best salary win. Thank you.
If you are white and you don't know what redlining is, this is a very important video for you and you need to buckle up. Redlining is the reason why you have mostly black neighborhoods and mostly white neighborhoods. Why in black neighborhoods you see that they're disproportionately affected by poverty. So this started with the Homeowners Loan Corporation in the 1930s. So picture a map where some areas are green and some are red. So the green areas is where they said, okay, we can provide loans to them and government-backed mortgage assistance. Now the red was considered hazardous. They were cut off from mortgage insurance and loans. Guess what neighborhoods were the ones in the red? Predominantly black and people of color. So what this did was made it almost impossible to buy, sell, and refinance their homes. So essentially they were trapped where they were. So in these green, predominantly white areas, they were able to grow in wealth. So the focus wasn't on the redlined areas. They weren't taking care of these areas. They weren't upkeeping them. So this led to the devaluation of the redlined areas. You literally have a system that allows white people to prosper, to accumulate wealth, while literally forcing black people to remain where they are, ensuring that it is extremely hard for them to succeed. It was only in the 1930s, okay? The effects exist today. You have generational wealth and generational poverty, generational home ownership and generational lack of home ownership. To this day, you still have racist realtors, you still have racist home buyers that don't want to buy homes from black people. Black people experience discrimination when they are applying for a job. They get paid less in general for the same job as their white counterpart. If you're a white person that's like, oh, black people only make up 13% of the population, but there's such a disproportionate amount of crimes that they commit. Listen, when people are disproportionately affected by poverty, they're going to disproportionately experience crime. It's not a black, white, or brown thing. Where you have poverty, you have higher rates of crime. It's literally as simple as that. The color of somebody's skin doesn't make them inherently bad. What do? We get rid of the generational wealth gap. We support black businesses. We talk about race. We call out racism. We speak truth. If you have a racist employer, you don't work for them. The second they open their mouth and say who they are, the second you notice that they're denying black people or people of color jobs, that all of the employees around you are your race, you say, why am I going to enable this? You see that they're being treated unfairly, that they're underpaid. You speak up, and if something doesn't change, you leave. Use your white privilege. When white people speak up, when they use their voice that they're so scared to use, that's when we see change. And until then, you are just an enabler. Silence is compliance. Silence is violence.